and welcome to episode 16, Her Finance Talk. My name is Sue Diamond and I'm your host, and our goal is to help women create a better relationship with their money so you can live your best life. So thanks for joining us today and investing in your financial well-being. So Her Finance Talk is brought to you by the Her Finance Club. And our mission is to socialize the idea that it's okay for women to talk about money because knowledge is power. And when that knowledge helps you become more independent, it translates to empowerment. Women empowering women is a mantra that we love to live by, and one that has helped inspire women for decades. So where would we be without each other? So let me welcome our guest today, Melanie Richards, founder of Be Visible. Hi, Melanie. Thank you for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule. So I'm just going to do a little brief intro and then I'll let Mel expand on who she is. So Mel helps others share their superpowers and problem-solving skills, so they are not the best kept secret in crowded industries. And she's been doing this since 1985. She has an extensive operations background and helps create accessible, safe spaces for others to connect, or as she has coined it, edutain. I love it. Educate plus entertain. And then soar during celebrations, conferences, and events. So as a collaborations and hybrids event strategist, she loves helping dynamic COOs and direct sales leaders motivate talented teams to create conversations, build energizing connections, and attract business. In the beginning, subtle strategic solutions worked well for all phases and stages. Then our worlds changed, as Mel pointed out, collided and removed our rose-colored glasses. Daily reminders to delete the word subtle from our strategic solutions, then add clarity. So I just love edutain. That is just a great term. So today's topic is in celebration of Black History Month. And the 2022 theme is focusing on the importance of Black health and wellness, promoting the health and well-being here of Black women through knowledge exchange through Her Finance Talk. So we know long-standing health disparities have been on a glaring display, especially during the pandemic, leaving Black people particularly vulnerable. And largely this is due to social determinants of health that many Black people face, including where they live, work, and the quality of healthcare to which they have access to. But moreover, today, what we want to talk about is also, on top of that, there is the bias and the discrimination that's dealt with every day, both in personal and professional lives, that create huge emotional and mental health impact. So Black History Month is a great time for us to dive deeper into examining how we can support and uplift Black women and remind the world that wellness isn't whiteness, it's for everyone. So I want to open up the conversation and have you jump in, Mel, and just expand, because I certainly didn't do you justice with my brief introduction there. But actually, you know what? I think before we get to that, I always love to share this, because the first time that we met was in 2013, and I had just started, had become an entrepreneur and was starting my own business, and you were introduced to me. So we had a phone conversation and I was just totally enamored with you, because the whole conversation was you saying to me, and that continues to this day every time I talk to you, how can I help you? What can I do for you? How can I support you? So after that, it was, I've got to talk to this woman again. And we actually met in person. And it was at the museum in Warwick. And we were outside, and there was all these chickens that were kind of harassing, for lack of a better description. They kept, doing their thing and running around us, and we kept moving, and they kept following us, and you just weren't fazed at all. You just carried on the conversation, and I'm like, oh my God, these chickens. But it's just, you are a wonderful lady, and I'm so privileged to know you, and I'm so happy you are here today to share with us your knowledge and some tips that I know you'll have for us in terms of self-care. So tell us, a little more about you, Mel, and maybe touch upon, what Black history means to you.
So thanks, Susan, for the opportunity. I love joining you. And what I'm laughing at about the chickens is Susan and I weren't attracting the chickens. Someone decided to join our conversation where we were having one of those deep, insightful conversations. That first time you meet somebody and kind of you have excellent vibes, and somebody decided to just stop in. That person brought the chickens. The chickens followed them. And what Susan doesn't know is I'm a girl from the Bronx. We did not have chickens. So I'm glad I seemed relaxed and calm to you. I figured as long as I ignored the chickens and just zoned in on Susan's good, positive energy, the chickens would eventually leave. But I think one of the fun things today about talking to you today is, as I'm sitting in my parents' beautiful home, is sometimes we don't have a definition of history as children. I am grateful to be the daughter of an amazing educator. And we've been laughing the last couple of days because Mom developed a love of reading and of books. And I remember that my dad had one of those really early morning schedules, but occasionally I would see him curled up in a chair with a book. And the cool part was, my parents were so wonderful. I could ask what my dad was reading, and he would actually let me read it after him. I remember reading in school during a Black History Month, Native Son, which is not the easiest reading. And, Mom also encouraged a love of poetry. So I fell in love with Black poets like Langston Hughes. And I think in cultural, Black History Month means something very different to me now as an adult. When we were younger, we were multicultural, hanging around with people in a world. We were celebrating life and living it to the fullest. It means something so different now. I think what it's now is a chance to honor the culture that we don't normally discuss on a daily basis. Right. During our first podcast, a friend had reminded me that she never knew what Black Lives Matter meant. Susan and I had a very in-depth discussion about that. My friend says, I don't know what this means. No one's ever mentioned it to me. And that, I think, is the part of Black History Month and the part of mental wellness that we should discuss. I even have a talk on it, Brave Conversations About the Undiscussable. There are things that we don't bring up on a daily basis. There are things that we don't normally talk about. We don't normally talk about our history. We don't normally talk about the mixtures of our cultures. And we don't normally, sometimes, except when we're people like Susan, share emotions with grace, with honesty and transparency, and with clarity so people understand it. Everyone has a history. What I think I want to remember as we're having this discussion is some people don't feel that there should be specific history months designated for other cultures. And I think it's a reminder, if you're interested in other humans, it's an opportunity to explore. And that's the part that I like to think of as we have these months with themes. And self-care wasn't something that was ever a part of my daily life till about a couple of years ago. And the pandemic reminds you, pay more attention to it. My mom yesterday asked me, I'm with my parents. My mom's like, did you take your medication today? There's a certain pill that I take. I didn't have a chance yesterday. It's that reminder to look out. Someone cares and someone sees you. And I think as you're honoring History Months, to just remember to honor others and to embrace our differences. It's a chance to learn something about us. And maybe I really took it, from the womb as a teacher's kid, of a dedicated, amazing teacher. And I loved watching my mom do that in the classroom. It was a reminder, keep our eyes open, stay fully aware. One of the other things that I think that Susan mentioned about access to healthcare is that sometimes as people of color, and especially in the world in which we live in, people don't trust our healthcare system. They don't trust their healthcare providers. I'm grateful to have an amazing doctor for almost 30 years who really cares, takes time to listen. And I think you really need that access to other professionals.
Right. Do you think sometimes though, Melanie, I know we've talked about this before, but women, we have this tendency to put things, oh, you know what? Oh, that's nothing. I just should, because of the American Heart Association and women, a video recently that I thought it was great. And it was an actress, playing out the part, but she was running around and dealing with the kids, and she was starting to sweat and feel dizzy and have pains in her arm, but she just kept ignoring it because she was taking care of the kids and her husband was going out to work. So she was just totally ignoring all these signs, or I should say symptoms, because she was taking care of everybody else in her life. And I think, I emphasize all the time, because I like to use that analogy, when you get on the airplane and they say, okay, you need to put your oxygen mask on first before you can start helping others. And I think we can't say that often enough to women, because they tend to take care or allow everybody else's needs to come in play. And the bottom line is, if you don't take care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to do all the things that you really want to do as a caretaker for your family.
Definitely. And I think another missing part of that is intuition. There are, it's taken years, decades. An amazing coach asked me a couple of years ago, how much do you trust your intuition? I said, 98%. She says, 90%, that's pretty high. I said, 1%, I'm too tired to realize that I missed a signal or a clue. And the other 1%, I need somebody around me who I trust, who's seen me and watched my reaction or my response to something, to ask me what's going on so that I stop and take a moment. I think what happens is we get so involved in the busyness of life as opposed to embracing the fullness of it. And one of the things I loved was yesterday, my dad, who's had a bunch of health challenges, said to my brother and I loved it. And I'm honored to be in this position. He's 87 and a half. Pop says, I am glad to be alive. I think the thing of embracing the fullness and also being able, even though it's an actress, even able to acknowledge to your children that something's up. Maybe it's something that you need help with, or whether you're asking a spouse or a coworker. I have a dear friend who was having a blood clot issue, didn't realize it, and a coworker said to her, you are going to stop working right now. We are going to the hospital. We are going to get you checked out. And I think we don't realize health, mental wellness. There are those warning signs. Right. I'm grateful to spend a lot of time with America's Supermom, Lachelle Atkins, who I have to remember to introduce Susan to. And Lachelle has 15 children. And
oh my goodness.
13 by natural childbirth. I jokingly, and not even jokingly, I consider her a saint because her ability to just juggle is just incredible, and her vision, but her focus is on mental health. And her focus is on helping others avoid depression. I think being surrounded by people like that, they really reminded me we have dark moments, we have health challenges in the world at which we're in now. My mammogram was just rescheduled for the third time in 5 months. You know, it's, some of us could say, oh, it's all right, I'll wait till next year. But I think responding to our intuition, to our cues, to our guts, to our family, to sometimes people who may ask you something, occasionally it might make you uncomfortable. It might occasionally be rude. You might be, why are they addressing it to me? Somebody who cares is maybe seeing something outside of us. And that's the part, I think, as we observe History Month and we try to look more into our mental health. I am delighted because somebody introduced me to something recently called mental fitness. I was like, what in the world is this? I used to have migraines. And every time I see those diagrams with like heads, you know, it causes me to click and see what the link is. But I really want to thank Susan just for a chance to really just remind us, pay really good and close attention to those you love and those you care about. And don't be afraid, even if it's privately, call somebody. You know, it may take a deep breath and it may be hard, but let somebody know that you care and you're there to help and support them.
Right. I think, I mean, just to touch on a couple of things, I mean, certainly in terms of intuition, and you see more today, intuitive coaches, but I just in the last couple of years, because I started doing meditations because I thought that made a big difference, and believe in affirmations, and we'll talk a little more about the mental fitness that ties into positive intelligence, because I'm a big proponent of that when it comes to your money story and changing your money story and your money mindset. And do believe, you know, that this is about you heightening your awareness to this. And once your awareness is heightened, then you can change that, right? But I'm also, when in terms of intuition, you know, messages that come to you from the universe, it's like something will pop up and it's like, why am I seeing this? Why is this being brought to my attention now? And it's like, I can either choose to follow the path or ignore it. And I find when I follow it, it's much more beneficial for me, because if I'm just listening to my head all the time, then it doesn't work for me. I have to listen to both my intuition and my head. And then I find that, you know, I can have the best results. But you know what, I always like to share, and we'll talk a little more about your experiences with the positive intelligence. But when we think about how it's tied to our mind, right? And how our mind acts and how it can act in our best interest. And as I just mentioned, you know, the good news is it is a skill that you can build if it's not acting in your best interest. So one of the things that I always like to share in terms of, so stress, you know, rears its ugly head in lots of scenarios and situations. But sometimes heightening our awareness to our mindset and the stress, that can actually be a good thing, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing. So one of the things I always like to point out, because we know for women, money is a huge source of stress and anxiety. And I know if you mention thinking about money or talking about money, that's something that kicks off, you know, emotions. And so for me, it's like, okay, so if you can think about where in your body is this happening? The minute we start to think about this. So if you have a headache or you're feeling nauseous, and then once you start to heighten your awareness to it, then you can actually kind of redirect. And in terms of, I guess, I guess I'm not explaining this too well, and I'll let
Actually,
you.
you're doing an amazing job. What you're saying is reminding me that underneath there needs to be some sort of alignment. That was the missing
Right,
key for me. Like for
right,
me now, and I'll say it straight out, I am so focused on my emotional, my financial, my mental, my spiritual, my physical health, that
right,
those are all parts of Mel, and they're all parts of Be Visible with Mel, and they're all parts of living fully with awareness and with a zest for life. And I think part of the thing for me that I felt was missing was discussing it sometimes with others with transparency and clarity. I would talk to people, and to me, it all boils down to trust in others. It boils down to confidence. It boils down to those little voices that we hear that we don't necessarily share with others.
mm-hmm.
You know, some of us, I have a really tight inner circle. And it's tight because I keep it safe. I need to feel like my thoughts are respected, heard, validated, that it's kind of, um, I'm guarding my temple, my sanctuary. And I think that part of what you're saying is what's missing for some. We always try sometimes to line stuff up. I always used to feel like it was a bag of puzzle pieces. And we're carrying the bag, and we're not sure sometimes which puzzle goes where. I think now the part that I really understand is the framework. If I don't have a framework or safe boundaries with which to operate in, then I don't express myself as a person. I don't express myself as an entrepreneur. I don't express myself as a Black entrepreneur. A really good friend who came up with edutainment. I actually have to give credit for that to Jonathan Howard. Jonathan said to me, "Are you becoming Be Visible with Black Mel?" And I said, "Jonathan, I adore you. Black Mel is always part of Mel." And I think that's what it is. Somehow in this, in our discussions, in the safety, and I so appreciate the safety of your podcast and the trust and the respect that we have for each other. You have to feel really comfortable, or you don't get past that. And that's another Jonathanism of success on social. He says you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Most of us aren't necessarily surrounded with people who have the courage to say that out loud. First time he said that, I was like, oh, I'm not sure this is for me. And the more I listened and understood, it's kind of like you have that pimple, you feel like it's coming to the skin.
Right.
And if you don't deal with it, it's a full-blown allergic reaction or a response to stress. But what you're reminding me is, as women, there are more cues sometimes that we process subconsciously, consciously, level. Separate that stuff is challenging. You know, it's one of the things I always call a Be Visible mix. It's like you have a giant mixing bowl. You're not sure what ingredients are in it. You're not sure yet what the recipe is. What are you going to substitute and how are you going to change it? But I think that part of what you're saying is really recognizing the warning signs and trying to respect them.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that, you know, fear, what it actually does is it kind of pushes our rational minds get pushed aside, right? So we really do have to kind of, okay, get comfortable being uncomfortable and thinking about it, because I think in terms of fear is a great reminder. So it can say, hey, you feel fear, don't forget your emotions. But as we experience those emotions, then it's going back and identifying where in the body, because I know it's the brain's fight or flight response, and we respond. It's either pleasure or pain or fear, and and again, you know, as women, if we're fearful about something, or we're fearful to share or challenge somebody, you know, that's coming from a time when, you know, we were evolving and coming out the cave, and it was useful if there was a lion around the corner and we were about to get eaten. But instead, today, when we're worried about money, jobs, and relationships, then, you know, we have to recognize it and know how we can shut this down, right? Because when we check in regards to how we're feeling, then we're engaging, and then our mind then can start to get past the flight and start looking at problem solving and thinking about how we can get on with this.
You reminded me of some amazing coaches who define fear as face everything and rise. And that wasn't my definition. You know, the face everything, whether you're a woman in business and you're dealing with a challenge with a colleague or an employee or a supplier or a client or a family member who you might be working with or volunteering, you know, it's definitely a decision of how you approach it. I think the thing that's hard is we bypass the emotions. We're taught to suppress them, to not express them. I have 4 journals. No one knew this until a couple of weeks ago. I have 4 journals. And somebody's like, why do you have so many journals? And then I laughed. I started a 5th one on my computer for when I don't have my journal with me.
Right. Yeah.
Each one has a different purpose, different reason. But what I noticed is in some of them, there were emotional themes. There are, you know, the themes of guilt. We talk about that from history, from health. You may be guilty because you didn't make an appointment. You're guilty because you didn't make a medication. You're guilty because you forgot. And I think that part of the emotion is what's hard. We really get stuck in emotions and guilt and trauma. That's part of our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, our financial health, our spiritual health. And I'm now starting to ask the question, how does it affect these 5? If these are 5 pillars of Mel and be visible with Mel, feeling like the best Mel possible, that now stops me to pause, whether it's in meditation, whether it's with breath work, whether it's with working with other healers. I'm grateful to have amazing, talented clients who are light workers. I was at a networking event. I ended up hanging out with 3 therapists. Fantastic. The universe sends what you need. It was the first day of mask mandates in New York. I'm hanging out with the therapist. I had no idea. I'm like, you think of the apprehension or the thoughts, and to find out, oh, somebody else is nervous. Somebody else shares this. Somebody else is concerned. And the best part, somebody else cares.
Right.
And I want to thank you for that, Susan, for always caring. And always inviting others into your world, because we never know where these discussions take us. But I truly just want to say thank you for the opportunities. And I love watching you and Her Finance explore, all the facets of community and collaboration. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing. I mean, this is the key, right? As you mentioned, we have a tendency, especially women, to think we're the only one. That, if we're experiencing something that's a challenge, or we're afraid of, or ashamed of, or embarrassed. And I think this is the key. Hearing other people's stories is helpful, because it helps us better understand in terms of how we can move on. But also knowing that, oh gosh, they're experiencing the same thing, and oh, okay, I'm not the only one, and all right, yeah, maybe I can get through this. I mean, again, I know when it comes to finances, that's a huge thing in terms of women, and thinking they're the only one. I'm a failure with money, or I've never been able to figure this out, or I never learned about personal finance, or I'm not good with numbers, and the list goes on. But you know what? I'm always saying, but you're not alone. This is across the board. And until we start talking about it, then that's when we can empower ourselves, we can become more knowledgeable, more comfortable, and then that'll increase our confidence in turn. So anyway, what I want to do is, because I know we're getting closer to our time, I want you to tell everybody, okay, tell them a little bit more about how you help people in your business?
One of the things I love doing is helping people with different styles. So I'm an introvert and really a trained ambivert, which just means I can show up sometimes and look like that extrovert. But I love working with entrepreneurs and organizations and their teams to have cool discussions like the ones we're having with Susan. Certain cultures don't permit the new person who has just been onboarded onto your direct sales team or onto your work team to really get the support that they need to really kind of soar. You start out in a culture and you're just trying to grow and learn it and hopefully be successful. And there are some hurdles. I am so not a life coach, but one of the things that I love is I do know when I'm working with a client and there's somebody who needs support in another way, I'm not afraid to have that conversation with a supervisor. Here's something that may be helpful to your colleague, to your employee, to your team member to help them grow. I love working with corporate teams and I love working with direct sales leaders who are trying to get to like that walk across the stage, that national level. You know, somebody signs up and they just started a work from home or a side business. And they're trying to figure out, how do I make this work for me in a really crowded industry? I'm not the CEO yet. I'm not the CFO yet. I'm not the success story. We individually need that story, whether it's, as you said, affirmations or, some sort of mindset training or some sort of support to just help us take the next levels. And I love helping people do that at live events, at virtual events, during presentations, and at celebrations for their businesses.
Wonderful. And tell everybody you have a Be Visible LinkedIn event every week, right?
I'm hosting 2 monthly Be Visible with Mel open houses. Okay. And it's the letter B in the word visible with Mel. And I host them monthly so people can pop in for a half hour or 45 minutes for speed networking. We're busy. We don't have the time. And I suggest people pop in and pop out. I had a 3-hour event yesterday. What I loved was some people came for as little as 5 or 10 minutes. And that's the time that we have to work on our business, to hopefully meet somebody who's going to help us get next level. So I suggest to people, oh, come pop in and tell us one way we can help you before we see you again. Right. We need help climbing the stairs, climbing that staircase one step at a time, one helping hand at a time. Right. And I really believe that to my core.
So I'll definitely share those links in the show notes so that our listeners can access that. What can we share with our listeners? What can they do to help support Black History Month?
3 things. And I think the positive intelligence is helping me answer one of these. Everybody's got a hesitation for, how do I show up to help others? And it really starts with the empathy and the concern and the caring. Some people are starting threads of give a shout out to Black entrepreneurs on LinkedIn. Others are sending out newsletters with, these are some of the Black owned businesses that I recommend. I think the thing that I would suggest is, even if it's hit with 4 people over the month, and even if it's 1 a week, is to find somebody who you can ask, how can I help you? Not just during Black History Month, but after Black History Month. Yeah, I think that's the part of the ongoing support part. We all need some extra support, emotional, financial, mental, right, spiritual, physical, that we all need something. And finding somebody who you care enough about to help and ask them, is there something you're doing over the next month or the next 6 weeks that I can help support you as you're celebrating Black History Month? Right. Yeah, and wait for the answer, even if they weren't ready for the question. And they're like, oh, are you asking me to lunch or to dinner, or oh, you want to come over for a family meal, or you want to know the next best soul food restaurant? Is to really wait for the answer and to let the people know, I'm asking because I care. Another way might be, people keep suggesting, read a book, read an article, but consider attending a program, a cultural program. Take your kids to a cultural celebration.
Right.
Buy a ticket to support someone else's not-for-profit, their initiative, their collection. And another thing is, kids, we always used to watch the show Like It Is by Gil Noble, and I was honored to work with somebody who was trying to help his daughter, Lisa, set up his archives or foundation. But there's a show on Sundays called Hear It Now. Here, and it was a show locally on ABC. It's just a snapshot for a half hour of what may be going on in the community. But what's making some people uncomfortable is they don't necessarily have a lot of friends who look like me. They don't actually have a lot of colleagues who look like me. Right. Just like Jonathan did. Are you be visible with Black Mel? He was a friend. He wasn't afraid to ask the question. He knew there was a lot happening in my community, and he could see how it was affecting me emotionally. And he was letting me know, do you need more support? Let me know how, let me know when, let me know where. And if you're not sure where to start with somebody you know, I encourage you, click one of my links for virtual cappuccino or chai or coffee or tea, and I will gladly talk with you for 20 minutes to maybe figure out a way that you can help support others in your community. That's my jam. Where's the gap and how can I help you fill it so you can keep on moving? We all need traction. We all need support. Right. And Black History Month, really, for those of us who are people of color, it happens 365 days of the year. Yeah. It's not just a month. Right. So if somebody can't answer today, they may have an answer for you next month. They may have an answer for you the following month. And that's the thing I would encourage people. Show up as a caring person, willing to have a dialogue, ask a question, wait for it. See somebody post something on social media. How can I help you? Do you need a sponsor? Do you need a volunteer? Do you need my son or daughter's Girl Scout or Boy Scout troop to do a collection? These teeny little things are major acts of kindness. And I think if we could live in a world where people we support each other 365 days a year, not just necessarily during specialty months, or the same thing with mental health. Try and do something, participate in a suicide walk. Go be a volunteer, go help take your kids, just help the conversation. I think that's the step towards helping and supporting not just entrepreneurs during Black History Month, but outside of it. So thank you for that, Susan.
No, thank you, Melanie, because this is, it's about all year, not just about 1 month in the year. And I really appreciate you sharing your story and your thoughts and some of the wellness tips. Our listeners are going to find that really helpful. Unfortunately, we are at the hour. It's always, we could talk all day about this, but what was the best place for our listeners to be able to connect with you?
2 places. One is LinkedIn, Be Visible with Mel. Another one is YouTube, which will start be a growing place where I can reach people and release some of the 35 hidden videos that my amazing virtual assistant is about to go through and re-edit in clips so they're able to help others. And also to reach out on Instagram. It's not a place where I was always active because I wasn't sure where to tell my story. But come hang out, and especially if we connect on LinkedIn, come pop into one of my open houses. I'd love to connect and find ways to support you and help grow your business and your initiatives.
Okay, wonderful. So I just want to lead out with, health is wealth. And it's really important that we're taking care of ourselves. As women, we'll live the 20th century's added, 30 years to retirement. And living to a grand old age is wonderful, but what comes along with that often is chronic disease and disability. And then we have the whole emotional side and mental health impacting us as well. So it's really important to take care of yourselves, ladies. You're number one, and then you can fulfill all the other wishes and needs that are important to you when you have your health. So I just want to kind of take the time to remind everyone Her Finance Talk is brought to you by the Her Finance Club. And our goal is to inspire 1 million women to start the money conversation, whether it be with spouse, friends, or colleagues, because knowledge is power. And when that knowledge helps you become more independent, it translates to empowerment. If you need help on your financial journey, please join us in our private community on Facebook and receive access to networking with like-minded women, support, and financial wellness content. Again, thank you to our listeners for taking time from your schedules to join us, and don't forget to subscribe. We love hearing from our listeners, so please feel free to share in the comments. So until our next episode, here's to your financial well-being. Bye.